The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. I thought my little Autism Live would show up, and I got to move it back a little bit. There we go. Isn't this fabulous? This was given to us yesterday by a wonderful young man who does this by hand out of wood. Isn't that the most fabulous thing? So this is an amazing gift. Gregory Chabola gave this to us, and I'm going to treasure this forever, and it's going to sit right there. Isn't that fabulous? We got to get a better backdrop for it so that you can see it clearer. But in any case, I'm Shannon Penrod. We're coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We're so thrilled and happy to be with you on this misty Thursday morning here in Los Angeles. In the last Thursday in February, we've got a lot going on today. Big show for you. And we're going to talk about autism from a 360-degree perspective for 2 hours without stop. Isn't that going to be fabulous? And we want you to know that it's very important to us that this show be interactive. So in fact, Traven's going to show you some of the different ways that you can connect with us, some of the different ways that you can ask a question, voice an opinion, so on and so forth. While he shows you these, I want you to remember that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, lots of things to do. The site has changed recently, and if you haven't been there lately, I really want to encourage you to check it out. When we are live, up at the top, there's a red button and it says live, and if it doesn't immediately pop up and start playing live, if you click it, it will. At different servers, it responds differently, so I can't tell you definitively which way to do it, but one way or the other, you can watch the live show, and it's bigger now when you pop it open. Now, used to be that we had that live feature to the side, which took up a lot of space, and we said, how can we do this differently? So at the bottom of the page, there is a place where if you click on, it says chat. That opens up the box, and then you can write in there. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It's completely anonymous. Even I don't know who you are or where you're writing from. So I do think it's helpful, especially if you're asking for a resource, to tell us what the closest major city is, so that we can have an idea. That I hate giving you guys ideas of things that you can do to find out that you're someplace that doesn't have those. You know what I'm saying? So give us an idea of where you are in the world. That always helps me. And it's fun to know where you're watching from. That's super reinforcing for me. And we've given you more characters now in that chat box so that you can write a longer amount. But if you ever, I love that my email is on the screen right now. If you ever need to write something lengthy, where you specifically want me to get back to you, you can write to me at s.penrod@autism-live.com. For those of you watching on iTunes, it's S as in Sam, .penrod, P as in Peter, E as in Edgar, N as in Nancy, R as in Robot, O as in Oscar, D as in Dog, at autism-live, L-I-V as in Victor, E.com. And I love to hear from you guys, so feel free to write in whenever. We try to get to as many questions and comments as we possibly can. We are no longer able to get to everybody's comment, and but if you write again, you get preferential treatment if you're a frequent flyer. So don't be afraid to write more than once is basically what I'm saying to you. You won't be bugging us. There's no way that you're bugging us. I always like to remind you on Thursday that we have lots of experts who are on the show, but don't confuse me with an expert. But also don't confuse me with someone who will get annoyed if you call more than one time, write more than one time. That I am in your corner for a very specific reason, because I myself am a mom of an individual who was diagnosed with autism at 2.5. And I'm one of the lucky stories. And while I love that, that makes me so happy to be able to say that. I so remember in the first days what it was like and how much fear I was in of what was the rest of my life going to look like. And the rest of my life looks fabulous. Do I have survivor guilt? You betcha. I'm just going to be honest. I do, because everybody doesn't have what I have. And everybody doesn't have right now what I had that led us to get there. And it's part of my mission to see if we can't have more of you get that. I can't be the only one who gets lucky. And I'm not the only one, but I want to help you to be as lucky as I have been. Does that mean that it's the exact same thing that you need that I had? No, because this is not one size fits all. This is one size fits a whole spectrum, right? So I want to help you to get to the resources and the services and the support that you need. And that's a two-way conversation, right? Because I'm not a mind reader. I don't know what you need until you tell me what you're looking for. But I'd love to help you to find what it is that you're looking for. And I mean that sincerely. And I always say to you, si se puede, right? We hold hands and we can do this. We absolutely can. Yes, we can. So having said all of that, we like to start Thursdays with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out, what are they talking about and why are they talking about it in this way? It kind of makes me a little on the crazy side. And I'll be honest with you, in the first 2 years when my son was being treated, it really upset my apple cart, because I would stand there and argue with people and say, why are you using this kind of jargon? Why aren't you speaking plain English? And what that did was lost time. And time is our most precious commodity, right? And it lost money, which, I'm never going to be a person who says it's all about money. I'm not. But when you don't have it and your child needs something that costs money, the importance of money goes up, right? And so we don't want to waste time and we don't want to waste money. We want to get to the good stuff. And what I eventually figured out, and it took me like 2 years, was that I needed to make friends with the jargon. If I wanted to save time and money, then I needed to figure out why they were using these terms, because the reason why people use jargon is because it's more specific and it's faster. And that if I could learn it little by little, then things would move faster and we'd save money. So we try to make it fun and reinforcing. So we give you the term, then we give you the actual definition. We make fun of it, because what else can you do? And then we try to distill it down into something that maybe we understand, and maybe we don't the first time. And that's okay too, because by the second, third, or fourth time, you'll have an idea about it. Then when you see it in action in your home or with the person that you love on the spectrum, you'll be like, oh, that's what that is. Oh, I get it now. And then you know what happens? Then you turn to the dark side and you start using those terms too. And I do now. And it's horrifying. Like, I used perseverating in a sentence the other day when it wasn't necessary. And I was like, oh no, it's happened. I've turned to the dark side. In any case, so today's jargon term, are you ready for this? One of our favorites, SD. Ugh, what? And why is it funky? There's an S and there's a D, but it's a big D, but it's slower. Why? What does that mean? So let's take a look at our actual definition and see. SD is a circumstance or action that precedes reinforcement. What? It's a circumstance or action that precedes reinforcement. Okay, well, I don't even know why that's important, right? So let's take a look at our working definition for SD. What you say or do to get the child or the individual to do the desired response. So the reason why we need to know what the SD is, and we're going to hear this over and over and over again, is that when they're using ABA, which is Applied Behavior Analysis, the gold standard of treatment for autism, it's the thing that helps teach all individuals, including those who are on the autism spectrum, including those who are high functioning on the spectrum, including those who are greatly affected on the autism spectrum. Okay, so, but by the way, it also helps train Olympic athletes and the very elderly and babies. It is the best teaching tool there is, ABA. But when you have a lot to teach somebody, eventually, you need to get very precise in ABA, because what we find a lot of times is that the skill that we want to teach is complex, right? So we're going to boil it down into little teachable moments, one thing at a time, and then connect them all together to be able to do the bigger skill, right? So you need a bit of a shorthand. So SD actually stands for discriminative stimulus. Okay, I know you're like, oh, I don't even need to know that, right? So it's the thing that you say or do to get the response that you're going for. So we have the target behavior a lot of times, and so therapists will use shorthand for things, but the SD is the thing that they are responsible for doing to get to the target behavior. And this is going to become very important because there's lots of different ways to teach something, right? So a lot of times you guys will write in and you'll go, I'm so concerned that the therapists that they're putting on my team aren't the most experienced people. The most experienced people are the BCBAs. And you get into this thing where you think, well, I'd like for the BCBAs to do the therapy. Well, the truth of the matter is that the BCBAs are the people who design the program. So they're figuring out, what do we want to teach the child? What's appropriate, knowing everything about the child, what's appropriate to teach them now? And what order do we want to teach this in to get to the skill? And specifically, how do we want to teach it? The BCBA is figuring out which SD is likely going to get us to the response. So the therapist usually gets a sheet. They've been trained in ABA techniques, and you guys always say, but they don't know my child. Right, but the BCBA does. They design the program. So the therapist just has to do the SD and write down whether or not they've done the response. Now, is that a nuanced thing that takes training? Yes. Because they have to be able to do it, write the response, keep the child's attention, and keep it all moving, and make it exciting and reinforcing all at the same time. That takes some training, right? But keep in mind that they have the worksheet in front of them often, or on the iPad, or they've been made aware that the SD is this because we're going for this target. So that really important component of what are we teaching them, how are we teaching them, why are we teaching them to get to the skill, that's being designed by the person who is the BCBA. If you think about it, and I often like to compare ABA to a car, because people get confused. People talk about DTT, discrete trial therapy, because that's a part of ABA. It is not ABA. If ABA were the car, then the steering wheel would be the DTT, right? Which is not the whole car. You wouldn't want to drive the car without a steering wheel, right? It's an important component. But if you leave to go to Las Vegas and you're taking a steering wheel, you're not going to get there, right? So the car has lots of components. And the person who's on the line, who puts on the steering wheel, has been trained how to put on the steering wheel. They did not design how does the steering wheel connect with the drive shaft. They didn't design that. They're not an expert in that, but they're an expert in connecting it, right? And this is what it is in ABA. So the BCBA is the designer, right? The therapist is the technician. And you will see over time that therapists have strengths in different areas, and they're better at certain things as opposed to other things. But they're trained specifically to be able to carry out an SD, write down whether it's had the response, deal with challenging behavior, and keep the kids engaged and having fun while they're doing it. That's the training that they get. And some are better than others. Let's admit that. And some have different niches of things that they're good at, but they all know how to do an SD in order to get a response, and to write down what the response was, and to prompt to get the response. It's very complicated. They're brilliant technicians. We don't ever want to take away, but they're not the person deciding the SD. And the SD is the thing that makes sure that we get the response. That comes from the highest trained people. Does that make sense? So SD is your discriminative stimulus. I don't know why the D is smaller. I don't know why it's backwards, but discriminative stimulus, it's the thing that you do or say or present to get the person to give the response, right? So I might say, I might put cards out and say, touch blue, because there are cards out that have blue. And so touch blue is the thing that I have, it's my SD in putting cards out. That's the SD, so that I want them to touch blue. Okay? SD, discriminative stimulus. I feel like I've confused us more than when we started, but we do our best. And it will make sense when you see it over and over again. Okay, moving on. We always have a question of the day. And our question to you today is, because I can't remember it, so you got to show it to me, Traven. It's what sets you up for success in the morning? Now it all comes back to me. So in the morning, what do you do to set yourself up for success? And if you go, uh-oh, I don't know, hey, here's an opportunity. What could you do to set yourself up for success? What would make things move smoother for you in the morning? And I got to be honest, as I was thinking about this, I was like, you know what really sets me up for success in the morning? When the kitchen's clean. When the kitchen is clean, my whole day goes better because I have space in which to pack lunches. I have space in which to, make breakfast. And I am happier. I'm just a happier person when the kitchen is clean in the morning. So, then I have to ask myself, what's preventing me from having the kitchen be clean every single morning? And you know what it is? I'm sometimes too tired at night. But if I want to think about it and think, but the truth is, it makes my day work better. And what I love is that if I get up in the morning and the kitchen is clean, then I'm motivated. Then that night I want to clean the kitchen and get it all taken care of so that it happens again. It's when I don't do it that then I get into a pattern of, right? So ask yourself, what sets you up for success? Is it something that's possible? Don't beat yourself up about it, but can you set yourself up for success in the morning? And then ask yourself, are we setting up the individual that you love and care about on the autism spectrum, which may be you? Are we setting that individual up for success in the morning? And how can we find out what makes them feel more successful in the morning? Often what we think sets somebody up for success is what sets us up for success. So I think it's important to investigate. Now, some people don't have the ability to tell us, but you can take data on it. And I know I don't like to take data, but it can be as simple as noticing when somebody has a good day, what was in place that morning. You can't assume because you got to see over time. But if you notice that your child has a better day when you wake them up earlier or let them sleep longer, these are things to look at because we all want to be set up for success in the morning, right? I do. I want to feel good in the morning. I love, commercials where the person wakes up in the morning and the sun is shining in their bedroom and they get up and they stretch and then it shows them, taking their dog for a leisurely walk. Doesn't that look good? Do we know anybody who does that in the morning? I don't. But let's set ourselves up for success so that we have that feeling of well-being in the morning because it will carry through part of the day, not the whole day, but part of the day. And that's, we'll take it, right? Okay, so moving on, we always have a topic of the week. And our topic this week, which you can write into us about any of these things on Facebook. We love to know what you guys think about them. But our topic this week is antecedent modifications. Okay, so in ABA, we basically take everything down to a 3-term contingency is what they call it. And we look at all behavior as being A, B, and C, right? So A is the antecedent, it's what happens before, B is the behavior, and C is the consequence, right? And everything in our life, you can pare it down to these 3 things. All behavior, animal, plant, humans, all comes down to these 3 things. You don't believe me? So you have a plant. And, you water the plant, right? You notice that the plant needs to be watered because it's drooping, right? So you water the plant and then the plant perks up, right? So the antecedent was that you saw it was drooping or that the plant drooped, and you put water on it, and that's the behavior, and the plant perked back up. Now, to my human eyes, this is reinforcing to me, maybe. To me it is, may not be to you. So I'm going to, hopefully, because I got such a bang for my buck about the fact that the plant perked up, I'm going to try to water the plant more often, because then the plant will grow instead of droop, right? So when we're seeing a behavior that we don't like, we don't have control over the behavior so much, right? With individuals on the autism spectrum in particular, right? But we have control over what happens before, and we have control over what happens afterwards. Sometimes, not always, right? So antecedent modifications are the things that we do before the behavior in question, in hopes of reducing the likelihood of having the behavior. So if you know that every time you take your child to the store, they're going to have a tantrum, you ask yourself, what can I do before we walk into the store to prevent the tantrum? In order to do that, you kind of need to know, why is the tantrum happening? Or what circumstances make the behavior more likely to happen? Like, for instance, we all know that if we don't feed a child and give them water, we're going to have a meltdown at some point. Same thing with human beings, right? Although adult human beings, although we forget it on a daily basis, right? But we tend not to forget it with kids, because it's so like, it happens on a regular basis. If the kid has not had sleep, if the kid has not had something to drink, if the kid has not had something to eat, it's just a matter of time before they're going to be a mess, right? That we tend to get. But what are the other things that don't set kids up for success? A lot of us with kids on the autism spectrum see that sugar and artificial colors and eating things that aren't particularly healthy set our kids up for tantrums and meltdowns. And it becomes very clear, and we go, I don't think I'm going to do that, especially on a day when I need them to not have a tantrum. We also find that for some kids, giving them a visual representation of what you're about to go do and what's going to happen can prevent a tantrum. And if you stop and think about that, think about your life and how much autonomy you have, that you get to get up. I hope in your life you have the ability to get up. I mean, even now, we're in the middle of a live show, but if I needed to use the restroom, I could say, let's take a break. I need to go use the restroom, right? We hope that most adults have this ability in their life, that they have, whenever they need to use the restroom, they can. If you need a drink of water, hopefully in your life, you can get up and you can go get yourself a drink of water. We know that that isn't everybody around the world, and that's a dire circumstance, right? But think about that. That is a dire circumstance. Imagine being a little kid in a little body, and you don't really understand how you feel, but you don't feel right. And you can't communicate that to people, right? And so you kick, scream, do whatever, because when you were a baby, that worked, right? We can be the adults and use antecedent modifications to make sure that things are in place so that we don't get to those things. And not knowing when you're going to get a break, not knowing, I'm being taken into a store and I don't know why, and I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't know when I get to leave, and I don't know that somebody's going to take care of me, right? So giving them a visual schedule and saying, hey, we're going to go into the store, we're going to do some shopping, we're going to leave, and then afterwards we're going for lunch, often is all a kiddo needs to be set up for success to go in the store. Is it the thing all the time? No, because each kiddo is different, each circumstance is different. Sometimes they're reacting to something sensory in the store. With my kid, I've told the story before about he would have the same meltdown in the same place, in the same store, and I could not figure out what was triggering it. And finally, we had a therapist, I don't think it was a BCBA, but we had a therapist who was trained very well to come in, and they noticed that the floor changed and went to a tile floor, and that he had a sensory issue, and we could train him. And there were things that they gave me to do before we would go into the store, and that I could, in fact, pick him up when we got to the tile part and say, you see the tile, you're not going to fall through it, it's going to be okay. And that was the antecedent modification, so the tantrums stopped. You see what I'm saying? There are so many times that we can do something beforehand that really greatly affects whether or not the tantrum happens. That's an antecedent modification. Now, okay, super important to know that for challenging behavior, but the flip side of that is that what can we change, not just to prevent a negative thing, but to make it more likely that something good happens. You know, when a teacher says we're going to do a test, and so they give an antecedent modification, they send home a note to the parents saying, please make sure they get enough rest this week. Please make sure that they have a really healthy, nutritious breakfast that isn't all sugar. Please make sure that they have a snack in case their sugar does dip during the day. Those are all antecedent modifications in the hope of getting the best possible result on the test. So it's a tool. Ask yourself, what can I be doing? What antecedent modifications can I put in place for myself? What antecedent modification can I put in for the people I work with? What can I do for my family? What can I do for the individual that I love and care about on the autism spectrum to set them up for success, but also to minimize the likelihood of the behavior that stops us all, right? Okay, so that is our topic today, and we just talked about it a lot, more than I intended to, and we're late. Okay, so we got to get this show on the road. First up today on the show, we've got a wonderful autism expert, David Scribner, is going to be with us. And then special education attorney Bonnie Yates is going to be answering your question. Then a little bit later on in the show, we've got Terry Hart, creator of Mime Therapy, and Herri O'Kelley, director of operations for the O'Kelley Lab. And then we're going to try to squeeze in one more last-minute interview at the end of the show. Paula Cracium is going to be with us to talk about a night to remember, a really wonderful event that's coming up very soon. So all of that and more after these messages. Stick with us.
Hey, I'm Candace Cameron Bray.
Tom Bergeron.
You're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
You're watching Autism Live.
Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult reality. As children with autism grow up, their services start to disappear or become very difficult to access. Things like medical care, mental health counseling, vocational training, and more. All services that are still desperately needed. The loss of support that youth with autism face as they grow up is so severe that it's referred to in the autism community as falling off a cliff. Adults with autism need the same level of support they had as children to avoid falling off the services cliff. Introducing Skills Living, the web-based software designed specifically to help transitioning youth and adults with autism so they can avoid the cliff and instead fly to success. With Skills Living, help your learner with autism develop the skills they need in all the critical areas of adult life, including self-control, planning, and problem-solving, effective communication, performing life skill tasks for independent living, acquiring and maintaining employment or other meaningful activities, developing and maintaining social skills and relationships, accessing transportation and public services, and being safe. Skills Living includes a comprehensive assessment, a data collection mobile app, behavior intervention plan builder, and automatic progress reporting. It also provides a complete curriculum addressing 16 key areas spanning the entire range of functioning adulthood. Skills Living is easy to use and can be implemented by schools, parents, and autism service providers. Call or click today for your free demo and see how Skills Living can help your learner with autism avoid the cliff and instead reach their fullest potential. Skills Living. Wish, learn, become.
Parent to parent, you might be asking yourself sometimes, why does my child have meltdowns? Well, the difference between tantrums and meltdowns, they're a part of typical development, but meltdowns are when things get a little bit more out of control, when even the child isn't sure what's entirely wrong. Generally with a meltdown, there's an environmental component. There's something else going on outside the child that's making the tantrum worse. It's really important that we start to be detectives and take notes and look around at the environment and start to figure out what are the things that happen every time your child has a meltdown. And lastly, it's important to get help. You really can't face these kinds of things effectively completely on your own. Tantrums, they're a part of typical development, but don't accept meltdowns as something that just happens. Make sure you get help and support. You might be asking yourself if your child has autism. Welcome back to Autism Live. We're really excited. For the first time on the show, we're welcoming David Scribner. David, am I saying your last name right?
Yep, that's me, David Scribner.
Okay. And David, tell us, we've got a really fun picture of you with your thumbs up because we weren't able to get a picture today. But thrilled that you're here with us. Tell us what your role is at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders.
I am a senior clinical lead manager, so I'm in charge of running 3 offices. I'm currently running our Santa Ana office, our Irvine North office, and our Anaheim office, all in California.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I know you're doing a great job doing that. So David is going to be answering some questions that you guys sent in for us. This is the segment that we call Ask an Autism Expert. And so David, I'm going to launch right in. Somebody said, thank you for the show. My son covers his ears when he hears loud noises and when he's doing something bad, and I'm redirecting him. When I call him, he covers his ears. What should I do? Please help.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty common thing that we kind of see with some of our earlier learners and our younger clients. I would look at this in 2 parts. For the covering his ears when he hears loud noises, the first thing I would want to do is make sure that we ruled out any kind of biomedical issues. I'd have him go in, get his hearing tested, and make sure that there isn't anything going on there. Once that was ruled out, then we have a little bit more of a direction that we can go to. We can also look into maybe seeing if he needs to have a occupational therapy referral to see if there's some sort of sensory issue there that they might be able to kind of handle and take a look at. And once we got that ruled out, the thing I would start looking at is the behavioral aspect of it. I think it's pretty telling that he's covering his ears when you're redirecting him. I would continue to follow through with that redirection. You don't want him to escape redirection just because he's able to block you out. And so we might need to do some other redirections rather than verbal redirections.
Can you give us like an example of what a verbal redirection would be, David?
Yeah, so do we have an idea of what the behavior is that they're redirecting?
I don't actually know
okay.
that.
No, that's okay. So, I mean, I'm going to use some examples then. So, if we had a client that was maybe laying down or playing with a toy inappropriately, getting some visual stimulation from it or something like that, and we had identified that as a behavior that we wanted to redirect, a verbal redirection could be something like play nicely, sit up straight, something along the lines of that, where you're giving some sort of a verbal command to do something different than what that behavior is at the moment.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, it's a pretty good strategy to just block that out, right? If you're the kid, if I can't hear you, I can't do it. So,
Well, it's equivalent to when we see on sitcoms and movies when somebody puts their fingers in their ears when somebody's saying something they don't want to hear and going la 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 la. It's if I don't really want to hear criticism either, and if I could cover my ears and not hear it, it would be a very adolescent thing to do. But if it worked, why wouldn't an adolescent do it?
Exactly.
So.
And that's the big takeaway there is that we just have to make sure that doesn't work anymore. So if our end goal is to redirect them away from that behavior, we just need to ramp up and use a different redirection. Whether it's if they're playing with the toy inappropriately, we take that toy away until that they're playing with it appropriately, and then they can have it back. If it's something that they're doing with their hands, directing their hands back down to their lap or something along those
what I just got that you said, I just had like an epiphany, because a lot of times as a parent, they'll be doing something that we don't want them to do, so we verbally try to redirect them, and in the case of the child covering the ears, or child who just doesn't do it, what it turns into in that moment, I just realized this, is that as a parent, we then become affronted that they're not listening to us, and the thing that becomes most important is the redirection, instead of the fact that we were trying to get them to stop a behavior, and in doing that, the kids got away with it. I just got that, David. You just made my light bulbs light up. But what we need to focus on is that we're trying to stop the behavior, not necessarily listen to the redirection. I had an aha moment. Thank you. I'm sorry.
No, that's exactly it too. I mean, I'm assuming that we're talking about an automatically reinforced behavior, and I think it's really easy to really miss what automatic means. Automatic reinforcement means that if you do it, it is reinforced.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that is the big takeaway.
Okay.
I did want to mention something else about this one too, real quick.
Yeah.
The caller also had mentioned that they would constantly plug their ears anytime they said their name as well.
Yes.
This will happen a lot when we're teaching certain skills. And we want to be really careful when we're teaching things like responding to name and eye contact and stuff like that, that we're pairing with something really fun and reinforcing, because kids do a really good job of learning that we use their name when we want something from them. And so they get really, really used to that. And so a good way to, really successful way for them to ignore or get out of doing work is to ignore their name when it's said. So initially what we want to do when we're teaching these things is to pair that with a lot of reinforcement. So we say their name, they look at us, and then we give them tickles, we give them high fives, we give them something that they really want. And then they kind of learn, oh, my name doesn't always necessarily mean I have to do work. It can mean good stuff too.
Got it. What an important
And then we can
point.
fade into doing more work.
So make sure that, just saying their name isn't always something that precedes something that's hard or difficult or not necessarily reinforcing. To make sure that when we say their name and they respond, that we're reinforcing them. I love that. Thank you. Okay, so the next one, my 3-year-old with little speech, she has begun public school and is receiving speech therapy there. Should I seek more therapy for speech? And I don't know what you read into this, David, but we have a lot of families that school offers them speech, and they think that sometimes they will prioritize that speech as being more important than their ABA hours. That's what I read into that one. Did you read that too, or am I reading in too far?
No, not necessarily reading it too far at all. There's a lot of different ways to read into this one. I've had similar situations where parents have gotten speech or OT through their school, and they're initially very, very happy with it. I think the really important thing to look at there is when you are receiving these services, and it doesn't matter if it's from school or if it's from an ABA provider or anything like that, you really want to be an informed and somewhat aggressive of the consumer. I cued into the part where they said that their child is 3 years old and doesn't have a lot of speech right now. And one of the things that you want to look for when receiving speech services from school is what that placement really is. Because one thing that schools will do a lot of the time is they'll do group speech. And group speech can be a really good placement if you're working on things like social skills, conversational skills with peers, and those types of things. But if you're trying to generate speech and we don't have a lot of speech yet, and they're in a group placement, they're not going to get a lot of that one-to-one direct time that they need to really make progress. So if you were thinking about receiving additional speech therapy, I think that would be okay. I think another big key there is the collaboration between all the different services, because you might be getting really, really good speech in one location and really good speech in another location, but without that collaboration, you're not going to get that to be able to generalize to all the environments. And I agree with you. It's also with the making sure that we keep ABA as a priority too, because although we're not labeled as speech, we are going to work on communication. That's going to be one of our major focuses, especially for a work on functional communication, communication as a replacement behavior for problem behaviors. We're working on a lot of different things there too.
Yeah. For a 3-year-old, I just want to point out for people watching, for a 3-year-old with autism, speaking or not speaking, the recipe often is that research shows that the most effective number of hours to do ABA is 25 to 40 hours of ABA. Schools right now are so threatened by that we have seen countless cases where a school will say to a parent, well, but it's really a question of quality versus quantity. And this is very disturbing to me because I want to know where that study is, because I'm not aware of that study. The study says that it's actually more practice. So, that it really is the hours. And I feel that schools are doing this to manipulate parents into feeling that they should spend more time at school and less time doing therapy. There isn't a study that shows that that's the way that gets the best outcomes. It just, if you find it, if you're aware of it, please let me know. So I always worry when a parent has got a little one, especially when they don't speak, they feel like maybe they should be doing more speech. And speech is great. I love speech, but make sure you're getting the ABA prescription 25 to 40 hours. And I would tell you to do 40 hours and do more hours at home. That's what gets it done. Okay, so the last question, can you help with awareness of streets and parking lots for 17-year-old? A 17-year-old that can only focus on one thing at a time. What do you say to that parent, David?
So this is, I really want to know a lot of background on this particular situation. So I'm going to give a little bit of a multifaceted response, I hope.
Okay.
One of the things that we're looking at here is that they're 17 years old, so they're a little bit older. So I'd be curious to see how much services they're receiving. If they are receiving ABA, then this is something that we really should be working on. We should be targeting this, and we should be getting as much practice in as possible. One of the issues with things like crossing the street, parking lot safety, or any real safety type skill in general is we don't really have that opportunity for a learning history. We know that if we step into the street, we're going to get hit by a car. But depending on where our learner is, they don't have the language that we can conceptualize that for them. Then it's kind of just an arbitrary thing for them. We're walking up to the street, and then we're doing this little ritual thing, and then we cross the street. And then they're not really pairing that with the fact that the reason we're doing that is because we're making sure that a car isn't coming. So what we want to do in that situation, we can't conceptualize that. We want to kind of move into teaching this as more of a rule-based thing. And this just becomes the routine. So that we can have a lot of success for teaching things like brushing teeth and taking a shower because we turn it into a routine. And this is what the routine is, and this is how I do it. And then once we get that routine really, really established, whether or not we understand why we're doing the routine, we still have that routine taught, and we're using that. So we kind of need to do the same thing with crossing the street and parking lot safety, where we just really, really teach that. Now, the problem is we also don't want a learner to look one way, look the other way. There's cars coming, and I cross the street anyways, right? We really want to teach that part of it. If the car is coming, then we stop. And so the only way to do that is to really, really, really practice lots of different times. I would start with the streets and the parking lot. I would start with the street that we have to cross the most often. I would start with that street, and I would start with the parking lot that we're going to be in the most often, and really, really identify what skills I want to teach, looking both ways, stopping when cars are coming, continuing to look while I'm crossing the street. And I would try to practice that during an off hour, if I could too. Maybe practice it earlier in the morning or later in the evening when we don't have a lot of cars. And then once we get those skills that we're looking for well established, then moving into it when it's slightly busier. And continuing for it that way. But once we do teach it in those two locations, in that one parking lot that we're always in, and that one street that we're always crossing, we're still going to have other streets and other parking lots. So we're going to want to move to a new parking lot, and we're going to want to move to a new street, and we're going to want to keep doing that over over and over and over again. We don't want to assume that this skill is just going to generalize. We want to really give them a lot of opportunities to practice this across many different environments and never really assume generalization, because this is a really big safety concern.
Yes, and I appreciate everything that you just said, because this is so important for parents. We forget that, you know, even if you were teaching this to somebody who was neurotypical, it would take a while. And there would be multiple opportunities, and that you would continue to worry about them and make sure and prompt and do things for years and years and years. And when we, you know, it may be that we didn't get to this or until the person is 17, but it's still going to take hundreds and hundreds of trials, and you got to be patient and give them all that opportunity in safe ways that David was talking about. Or it may be that this person, you know, sometimes a skill with a neurotypical child will take 100 trials, but with our kids it takes 2,000. But when it's a safety issue, we just want to keep working on it, because it's a safety issue. I mean, it sort of speaks to itself. So David, I appreciate all of your answers. Thank you so much for everything that you do for our families, and for taking the time away to be with us this morning and answer these questions in such a thoughtful and considerate way. We really appreciate you.
No, thank you for having me.
Well,
My pleasure.
Well, it was our pleasure, I assure you. And say hi to everybody there in Southern California for us.
All right, will do. Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And so that was David Scribner. What a energetic and fabulous young man, doing great work for so many of our families. We have to take a quick break, and then we're going to be back with special education attorney Bonnie Yates. Stick with us.
Hard times lead to good choices. Many times you're going to find out that change is coming, and it's not something that you like to see. Things sometimes just don't work. Sometimes you have to put your child in a new school. Sometimes you have to put them in a different classroom. Often you'll see this with perhaps special education versus regular education, or everyone's favorite, puberty. All bets are off then. However, these things happen when they need to happen. So making that hard choice is super, super scary. But when you open those doors to look at things that maybe you've never dreamed you would have to look at, you're going to find help that you never expected. There are a lot of people out there dealing with the same things that you are dealing with, and there is a level of help that you never even knew existed. So don't be afraid when it's time to look at the scary problems that you're having. When those things come up, when the aggression increases, when things are falling apart at home, when you're getting the calls from the schools, don't be afraid. Reach out. Find out what you need to do. You might need to look at new schools, new housing. You might need to access new levels of service. But I am telling you, you're going to see amazing things. There are children that, as they grow, do things with the help of others, very specialized support, that you never thought they could do. So once you do that and you meet the child where he or she is and you give them what they need, everybody can do better, and you're going to see amazing progress.
Hi, Lisa Ackerman back with your Talk of Facts, the autism journey questions and answers that you need to help your child make the progress they need. I'm here to talk to you about one really important item. A lot of people ask me the question, well, Lisa, I want to see this specialist in another state. How do I do that? You know, I don't own a jet. I don't have the ability to fly without great pain and travel. Not a problem. We know how to get this done. So I actually encourage families, even though in travel can be a tremendous hardship, getting a child with autism through security, through the plane, and in the journey to where they need to go. We have a whole white paper on TACA about how to travel with special needs kids. So it can be done. So travel, we know that can be expensive. Not everyone has an unlimited supply of cash for air flights. We love and work with this group called miracleflights.org. They're fantastic. They will fly you and your child, so one parent, one adult, anywhere in the United States one time a year. Also in the TACA document are places to stay. So often you will have people in your life that love and support your family and don't know exactly how to help. Ask them to gift you their travel or their rewards cards or coupons for hotel, rental car. That's a great way to be able to get maybe a hotel room that has a refrigerator or a microwave and that's close to a Whole Foods, so you don't have that added cost of going out to dinner, especially if your kid has a lot of allergies. It's important to note that there's not a pediatrician or a specialist by every Starbucks in the United States. Close does not always equal best. So I bring up the travel point so you know that travel is possible, number one, and often it's really going to help you get down the road faster for your kid and getting the answers you need from the specialist that knows what to do. So don't be afraid to travel.
Welcome back. We're back live, Bonnie. She's not able to hear. We're talking during the break, and she wasn't even able to hear me. But so we're back live now with Bonnie Yates with us on Skype and on the phone. Bonnie, for those of you who don't know, is a special education attorney of the highest order. She's amazing. Her law firm is Herri O'Kelley. And Bonnie, welcome back to the show.
Good morning. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. Do you want to take a second and tell us a little bit about Herri O'Kelley and give us the disclaimer?
We can do that. Herri O'Kelley is a 6-attorney law firm in Culver City. We do special education and disability discrimination, although we're also getting involved in a lot more higher education matters, and I could talk sometime about what that means, but there's a whole bunch of people out there. Some have IEPs and some don't, and they go on to college, and they have all kinds of issues come up in college.
Yes.
That's kind of the higher ed piece. I think I'm supposed to give a disclaimer. I'm going to give it really quickly. We're not giving legal advice. We're trying to advise you about your rights generally under federal and state law. I'm licensed in California, so if you're in another state or you have a specific legal problem, there's kind of no better way to address that than to have a consultation with a live attorney who can focus on your specific question. But we think that talking generally about IDEA and understanding what it envisions for parents and students will help parents better understand what the state dyslexia guidelines refer to as, quote, jargons and acronyms that are ever present in the world of special education and systemic problems and so on. So we talk about all those. And we're trying to help you understand better a system which sometimes says it's one thing, but it's actually another.
Amen to that, sister.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to answer one question from last week, and then you're going to wrap up dyslexia, and if there's time, we'll get to some of the questions for this week. Okay. So the question from last week was, and we actually have it again on this week's, because we get this, I think it's the most often asked question, how do you get the school to give you a one-on-one aid? It's like some magic trick, right? That people...
Well, it's like one of those corals that has many branches.
Yeah.
But first of all, we understand why parents are repeatedly writing us in and asking us about this question. It's really the question for parents with a child on the autism spectrum. And for me, this whole process of learning about IDEA and learning about autism started in 1994 when my own child was diagnosed with autism. So the point, I guess, about that is in those days, it was a little bit easier and clearer because there were no programs for children with autism that were specific methodology programs in the main. So if you had a kid with an autistic diagnosis, he or she, or an autism eligibility, he or she would sort of be generally directed to the available drop-in special day class, non-categorical at your school. And I will never forget the day I visited one in Los Angeles and one in Culver City. Those were the placements the district was offering. I was like, oh my God. And it really helped solidify my decision to go to CARD, because when I saw how bad the district special day classes that were being offered to me were, I thought, well, I can always do that after I flunk it, well, or after we flunked at doing ABA. So in 94, we had the 1987 study published when Ivar Lovaas was still at UCLA, reporting on the results of his experience with giving children, young children, intensive, more than 30 hours a week ABA, and the results were quite encouraging. I am getting around to this one-to-one aid business, but I think one problem is people don't understand the history, and you kind of have to understand the history to understand where we are now. So the 1987 study, which is readily available on the web, and Shannon probably has like copies of it in her car. You know, I mean, it's a very, I'm just kidding, but it's a very seminal study. And
it's on my bulletin board in my office, not in my car.
The reason we're bringing it up is because districts don't educate people about autism in, what is it that we say, IMHO. So we have to go back to the beginning to remember that the standard, the best practice is 30 to 40 hours a week of intensive one-to-one behavior therapy supervised by a board-certified behavior analyst. Well, in the 90s, what the districts did was they tried to claim that they had their own autism program, and they took the best elements from each program out there, and they said that they had an eclectic program. Then people started really pushing back with the research and saying that the district's programs weren't research-based. So then the district started, quote, training people, unquote, to do behavior therapy in general ed in the public schools. And then we went through about a 10-year period where what we were fighting about was that we wanted a trained, qualified aide, which we believed was most readily found in a non-public agency program run by private individuals who contract with the district rather than district ABA programs. So we had a lot of fights about that. And now what I'm seeing is that those district programs that they created, which, by the way, are not based on any outcome data or anything as far as I can tell, and they typically involve online training and not a lot of follow-up, and it's kind of sink or swim stuff. And that's dangerous because when you don't give adults enough of a toolkit for working with children that have communication and behavior problems, you end up with adults that get frustrated, and they don't always know how to deal with that frustration in a way that's not destructive. So, and these are just my opinions. Other people can disagree, but this is what I see. So now it's like if you want a one-to-one aid at school, it'd probably be a good idea to go back and look at the 87 study, because one of the things about the 87 study is that it emphasized the need for multiple interventionists so that the child did not become dependent on one style of instruction to learn in the classroom, even though a lot of the times they have one person all week long. But also, the 87 study tells us about the intensity and the frequency of the program. And so public schools now are basically doing all kinds of things to get away from giving even one-to-one aids. They have something that is totally made up, and it falls under the category of acronyms and jargon, okay? Acronyms and jargon is what the California Department of Ed was referring to in the discussion about parents with dyslexia managing their IEPs and stuff. But acronyms and jargon, there's something called a Special Circumstances Instructional Aid Assessment, or a SCIA, S-C-I-A. And I don't know if this was dreamed up by some school district or their attorneys helped them, but a SCIA is what you might get confronted with if you ask for a one-to-one aid. And it's only an assessment that's given, I mean, mostly only after parents ask for a one-to-one aid. And it basically is, I guess, kind of a functional behavior assessment. And what we typically see is that the district doesn't want to give the aid. Then it does the SKIA, which is kind of this made-up assessment, and then they say the SKIA supports not giving the one-to-one aid. So watch out for those SKIAs because they're out there. The other thing they do is they say that your whole program is going to be, your social skills program is going to be managed by the speech therapist, which is improper because they don't necessarily have behavior training and they don't have the time to do the training. And then, maybe you'll get a little, fortune cookie with a slip of paper inside that says lunch bunch, and you'll get to go to school and go to lunch bunch once a week for 30 minutes. So why am I going on at length about this? The need for one-to-one teaching for children with autism hasn't changed. It's not going to change. That's the way they have to learn in the beginning. They need one-to-one teaching, and they need concepts broken down into smaller chunks and then rechained, and priming at home and practicing social skills at home, and then working on them at school, which is the real laboratory. The only way you're going to be able to get a one-to-one aid, unless the district decides to give you one, and typically they do that when they're afraid and there's a safety issue with a kid, is if you have an assessment and the assessment looks at the child in his classroom with an eye to whether or not the child can have success in the general ed classroom, which is the preference. And if the evaluator thinks that he can be successful in that way, the evaluation would look at that and discuss that. So really we're back to, you need an outside evaluation that you either pay privately for or you have done at district expense. The district isn't going to budge until you've got a strong witness who's clinically trained, who can demonstrate why there's a need for a one-to-one. So everybody's dealing with this issue because we all need, one-to-one support for our children with autism. And I don't have any better way to get it than you get an expert evaluation, you present it in an IEP. If the district says no, you go to due process. I mean, the other thing you could do if you had a young child is you could pull them out of school and use your insurance-funded ABA and take data and see how much faster the student learns if he has a full-time ABA immersion, and then go back to the district and say, now I need this in the classroom. But there's no easy way, and the cost of a one-to-one aid is, even if it's not a very well-trained person, is significant enough so the district's not going to, agree to that unless they think there's a compelling need or there's a fight for it. So, and we frequently run into situations where the behavioral problems are defined very narrowly because we have some students that are very intelligent, they're kind of twice exceptional kids, and they don't have externalizing behaviors or behavioral excesses. But what they do have is behavioral deficits, things that other kids their age are doing and they should be doing and they're not, so they're falling behind socially. And that's, one of the reasons that you need a one-to-one ABA trained therapist in the classroom. But the district is narrowly defining the behavior problems so that you in theory could get this all addressed by a few hours a week of something like speech or social skills or RSP support. The last thing about this is when the district offers anything, and you're entitled to ask questions to figure out if it is what it purports to be. So when you want to get into this discussion with the district about having a one-to-one, you'll find that they push back and they're defensive and they don't want to talk about the person's training, and they try to make you feel as if you shouldn't ask about it, but you should, and the right time to do it is at the IEP because your parental participation is hamstrung if you can't inquire about the qualifications of the aide or perhaps even observe the aide who's going to work with your kid
Absolutely.
30 hours a week.
It's a little bit of a minefield, and I know that it changes all the time, but do you find, because this is what happened for me that I'm told now after the fact, at the time I didn't understand what was happening, but I went in because of coaching from somebody in your office. I went in and I used jargon terms to my benefit, and I said, look, I know my kid is entitled to FAPE, and you show me how what you would be doing is effective because I have these studies, and laid them out on the table, and I said my kid is entitled to FAPE in the least restrictive environment. And the only way it's going to work he can be in this classroom and I've got this assessment. I had my ducks in a row because I was prepped by somebody in your office. And what I'm told now is that we got the aid because it looked like I knew what I was talking about. Do you find is that just an anomaly, or is that something you've seen in other cases? Where if the parent goes in with a lawyer, that they go, all right, just give it to them?
Well, you and I haven't talked about this, but I always thought you got off easy, and I'm sorry to say that because it's pretty insulting to say that to any parent that has to have dealt with the system.
Right.
But I was surprised and pleased that you were able to get that without a big fight and without involving attorneys. I also felt like it was maybe partially explained by the fact that your district was a very small district, and you came in at a time when they probably didn't really have too much in the way of autism programs, so they were in a more defensive position.
Well, I'm going to remind you of something that I think was more to the point, Bonnie. You had just won a similar lawsuit in the district right next to us, and that is why.
Who knows? Who knows? I think your result was anomalous. I think it's hard to get one-to-one trained people without a lawyer. I think it happens. I think it definitely happens. And when it does happen, if it's an outside agency that I'm familiar with, I breathe a sigh of relief. If it's a district person, the jury's still out on how that's going to work.
Right. Okay. But in general, if a parent sees that the district is not going to give them a one-to-one aid, the best possible move that I can see from what I went through and what you're saying to me is to lawyer up. Do you disagree with that?
I think what I said was they need an outside evaluation by a qualified professional justifying the need for the one-to-one. I mean, having a lawyer is useful and sometimes necessary, but the lawyer cannot provide the parent with evidence that supports their recommendation, and the lawyer's only as good as her evidence is.
Okay, so first get the evaluation, but...
or do it in tandem.
Okay.
You can do it in tandem because, if you don't, you need to know things like what to do when the district says your evaluator is only allowed in the classroom for 30 minutes. But the point is, I can't emphasize enough how dependent we are as attorneys on getting a one-to-one. How dependent we are as attorneys in having a good evaluation that observes the student in his classroom for a meaningful amount of time and so on.
Okay, cool. All right. So I love that response. Thank you so much for taking the time to do that, Bonnie. We want to give you time now to finish up the dyslexia piece that you were working on.
I was so hopeful that we could finish it up, but then I talked too much.
Oh, okay. No, I think we've got time.
So, a couple of things.
But you're a little bit muffled now. I don't know whether your mic got covered in the screen.
Okay. My paper problem.
Okay.
Okay. So, in the dyslexia guidelines, on page 63, there's an important chapter, chapter 11, called Effective Approaches for Teaching Students with Dyslexia. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. You can go back and read it if you feel inspired. But it basically covers the importance of using evidence-based strategies, the principles and content of structured literacy instruction, the use of accommodations when educating students with dyslexia, and the use of progress monitoring data to inform the planning of subsequent instruction. And the reason I'm spending time on this is because I hear from so many parents that their children have a language-based reading disorder and they don't think the school knows what to do at all. Chapter 13 talks about what things people with dyslexia say that they need, and I figured that this would have broader applicability to kids on the autism spectrum that have a different, an additional disability. The participants did a study. They interviewed people with dyslexia, and very quickly what they said was they need certain types of support from parents and professionals. They need support in exploring, developing, and understanding.
Bonnie, I just got to stop you for a second because we're barely understanding you. So whatever, if it's by the, just, there we go. Maybe that'll work.
Better?
Okay, yep.
Any better?
Yep, it's much better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, guys.
That's okay.
Okay, so people with dyslexia need support in understanding their strengths, understanding and developing their strengths, in understanding that they require additional time to do things that other people can, typical tasks that other people can do more quickly. They need teachers to understand that, their disability is not all that they are, that they also can be very capable and have really valuable and interesting strengths. They need support in developing strategies for organization and time management and alternative methods to access information. So I think those are really interesting things for parents, to consider with respect to their own children who might not be able to express their reading disability as such. And then there's a really nice section on assistive technology and why it's good for people with dyslexia. So they're talking about audiobooks, they're talking about text-to-speech, graphic organizers, smart pens, which sound really cool, and I want one, but I probably wouldn't be able to figure out how to use it. It says a pen that combines a camera and an audio recorder. A student can record notes with minimal writing, so she can focus on listening and processing information in the moment. She can listen to the recording again and again as needed, which is great because we know kids with dyslexia really benefit from repetition. Speech to text, which is going the other way from text to speech. Spell checkers, word prediction software. So those are some technology options that might be helpful to your student. And then the last part of this is we're really going to finish this. Parents who have a child with dyslexia have the right to have terms that are used at their IEP meeting explained to them. There's an acknowledgement in the guidelines that parents are victims of jargon and acronyms at IEP meetings that they cannot possibly understand, and that when somebody says, well, your child has a processing deficit in the area of blah, 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 you should be able to say, can you please break that down for me? I really don't understand what that means. The very last part of all of this is two things. One is a discussion about when kids with dyslexia will only need a 504 plan versus an IEP. I'm not going to spend time on that because I don't really believe that kids with dyslexia would benefit from a 504 plan. I think they need more intensive remediation. But at some point, if people want to know what a 504 plan is, we could definitely have some discussion about that on the show.
We actually have a question about that for next week. So we're good.
We'll do that next week. So if I can have one more minute, I can finish this.
You can. Every time the paper rustles, we lose you a little bit. So if you can hold the paper.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay, but I want to hear what you want to say. So if you can hold the paper still, we should be good.
Okay. Working on my paper holding skills. It's an IEP goal. I am a teacher and suspect that one of my students may be displaying signs of dyslexia. What should I do? Is it all right to alert the parents about my concerns? The answer is yes. There's a child find duty. Any child that's suspected of having a disability is entitled to an assessment at that point. I am a speech and language pathologist. What role should I play in helping identify and assess a student who may have dyslexia? Well, the study says that they've determined that speech and language specialists need pre-training so they can help prevent, identify, assess, and provide intervention with students with dyslexia. So that's pretty important.
That's very important.
Okay, paper wrestling and apologies to everybody. Is an outside diagnosis of dyslexia necessary for a student to become eligible for special education? The answer to that, the quick answer, you can look at the FAQs if you want more, is no. Do all students with dyslexia require an IEP? They say no, but I say probably. My student's reading is slow but accurate. However, spelling is extremely poor. Could he still be dyslexic? The answer is yes. Because a specific learning disability is a disorder in one or more of the basic psychological processes involved in understanding or using language, spoken or written, which may manifest itself in the imperfect ability to listen, think, speak, read, write, spell, or perform mathematical calculations. And they go on to say that spelling and oftentimes dysgraphia are things that you're going to see in somebody who has dyslexia. So you should definitely be concerned if your child is having trouble learning how to spell. So that's kind of a hallmark of a reading disorder. The last part about this, and we already covered it, is can the school district delay and not do the assessment and say, well, we're going to do some, supplemental reading instruction? The answer to that, the quick answer is no. That's discussed in more detail on page 97 of the guidelines if you want more information about that. And the IEP team, well, I'm not going to do that one. I don't think that's important. The last thing is, I'm a teacher and would like to receive training on how to use evidence-based, multisensory, direct, explicit, structured, and sequential training approaches when teaching students with dyslexia. Where can I receive that type of training? And the answer to that question is on page 98, and they give specific resources for teachers, and they also give information about what are called accessible educational materials for students with dyslexia. And if you go on in the FAQs, they have some information about free programming stuff that's available for people with dyslexia. I can't find the reference now, but there's a special reading program that's available and special Chromebooks for teachers who are working with students with reading problems.
Tell them again what the document is that you're referencing.
Yeah. California Dyslexia Guidelines, published by the State Department of Education in California, online as a printable document with links to really good stuff. Just, in closing, I'm sad that the Department of Education didn't make mandatory the guidelines mandatory duties for the district, but they didn't. But there's a gold mine of information in this document and lots of links. And so if you're a parent, and you have a reading problem, your child has a reading problem, go to the table of contents. You're going to find stuff in this document that'll be very helpful to you. So I feel like it took me about a year to get through this. This was a long exercise. I appreciate everybody being really patient, and we're going to move back to more autism-specific questions.
But these are all helpful for families that are trying to get the best possible services, because they're guidelines that will, hold up, and we can say they're best practices. So Bonnie,
I feel like the AT stuff is really important,
Absolutely,
to be able to construct an argument for assistive technology that's actually a bona fide piece of assistive technology.
Absolutely, I completely concur. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Tell everybody really quickly how they can find Herri and Chow.
Herri and Chow can be reached at 310-391-0330 or at our website, lawyer4children.com. If you're in Southern California and you'd like a complimentary consultation with our office, you can call us or email us, and we'll set you up.
All right. Thank you so much, Bonnie, for being with us. We'll see you next week.
Paper wrestling. That's one of my IEP goals for ESY 219. Paper wrestling.
We got to find a better way. All right. Okay. We will talk to you next week.
All right, Shannon. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Okay. So we are, I'm trying to stop the paper wrestling. There we go. It's over. We are going to take a quick break because we're already behind. We're very excited that we've got wonderful guests that are going to be with us here in the studio. We're having Terry Hart and Herri O'Kelley that are going to be with us talking about Mime and the O'Kelley Lab Mime is Therapy. So this will be so super fun. Don't go anywhere. Stick with us. Bye-bye.
Hard times lead to good choices. Many times you're going to find out that change is coming and it's not something that you like to see. Things sometimes just don't work. Sometimes you have to put your child in a new school. Sometimes you have to put them in a different classroom. Often you'll see this with perhaps special education versus regular education, or everyone's favorite, puberty. All bets are off then. However, these things happen when they need to happen. So making that hard choice is super, super scary. But when you open those doors to look at things that maybe you've never dreamed you would have to look at, you're going to find help that you never expected. There are a lot of people out there dealing with the same things that you are dealing with, and there is a level of help that you never even knew existed. So don't be afraid when it's time to look at the scary problems that you're having. When those things come up, when the aggression increases, when things are falling apart at home, when you're getting the calls from the schools, don't be afraid. Reach out. Find out what you need to do. You might need to look at new schools, new housing. You might need to access new levels of service. But I am telling you, you're going to see amazing things. There are children that, as they grow, do things with the help of others, very specialized support, that you never thought they could do. So once you do that and you meet the child where he or she is and you give them what they need, everybody can do better and you're going to see amazing progress.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to, just,
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a big one. Yes.
Autism,
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love. The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Nobody ever asks a kid with autism, what is it you'd really like to do? At this school, we ask the kids, what is your goal? What is your dream? Exceptional Minds is a vocational training program for young adults on the autism spectrum who want to have careers in computer animation and visual effects. I think young people with autism are totally underestimated.
When you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. They all have different talents, different skills, and what surprised me is that there really are no limits. That if these guys believe that they can do something, they really can.
It's estimated that 90 to 95% of young adults with autism are unemployed or underemployed.
A lot of young adults still live at home. A lot of them suffer from depression and are very isolated from the rest of the world, and the opportunities for them are very limited.
We want to develop careers for our young adults. Our full-time program runs 3 years, at the end of which we have job placement and job coaching. We have a work readiness program. We also have our own in-house studio so that when our students graduate, they can do on-the-job training and work on real projects.
We outsourced about 30-40 shots to the team here. They did fantastic work that we can put into a movie and be proud of it. It's great. I mean, we want to do it again.
The studio is their first step into the professional world, the first step in their new careers as digital artists.
The whole purpose is to get the students out into the real world.
We all have the same dreams. We want significance, dignity, and purpose with our lives. We have an opportunity to give those 3 words to every single student at this school who will actually be able to go out and participate in the dream.
This is my first full-time, full-paying job. I primarily work in After Effects. I learned After Effects at Exceptional Minds. It seemed like a good place for me to fit in because I was interested in animation.
Right from the first day that Nicky set foot in our company, he was producing work for us. We saw what level of professionalism is being instilled in them from the very beginning.
This was the first opportunity where Nicky could combine something he loved to do with something he was really, really good at that could eventually lead to employment.
When we first met Kevin, he was working at a supermarket bagging groceries, and they said he would never amount to anything else.
I work at Stargate Studios, and I'm a junior compositor. I mainly do like rotoscoping right now, and I'm still learning.
I think that you find great talent in the most amazing places. The students at Exceptional Minds have had a fair amount of training to get them ready for the visual effects environment.
If it wasn't for Exceptional Minds, I might still be at the supermarket, and I might be living at my parents' house.
Everything's changed. Nicky has purpose.
It feels like I'm a member of society now.
He's capable of making it on his own.
Once you get inside and you see what's really happening there, you immediately want to be a part of it.
It's the dream factory, you know, the movie business, and if you can connect people with their dreams, then the magic happens.
At Exceptional Minds, we like to say that we are changing lives one frame at a time.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're really thrilled right now. We're just not going to have enough time. I'm going to say that out the gate. Right now in the studio, we have Terry Hart and Herri O'Kelley. And there's so much to talk about that I'm not even sure where to begin. But let's start with talking about what the O'Kelley Lab is.
Well, the O'Kelley Lab is a self-proclaimed lab. It's actually our family. You know, I have 2 special needs children that are on the spectrum, and I have 1 medically fragile. And so when you're given that, you either embrace it or it consumes you. Yeah. And the lab is actually all of us working together, our family, looking for new supports, new tools, new therapies like we've created with Terry Hart. We've created Mime as therapy, and that's an example of the kind of things that we do. I was lucky enough when my daughter was diagnosed at 3 to have regional center services, which were so important, as you know, and I was introduced to the floor time therapy. And so that gave me some wonderful tools as a mom. And one of the tools was to follow the lead of your child. And so that's what I use with the O'Kelley Lab. I mostly follow my children's lead. I try to stay very present with what's going on with them. And the O'Kelley Lab is really trying to promote advocacy. We're wanting families to get involved with their children's disabilities or strengths or both, and really just learn how to support each other and have more successes.
Okay. And then you mentioned that you started a collaboration with Terry Hart, and you're from Mime as therapy.
Yes.
Now that in and of itself is just so interesting. We
Well,
could take 2 hours on that,
yeah,
right?
you could. We
Right.
could. But and it's brilliant. And she kind of led the way. She, our kids went to the same school, and that's how we met. And both in the business and the entertainment business. And she found out from my wife that that I am a mime from a long time ago, from way long time ago, Shields and Yarnell days. And
I know who Shields and
You know
Yarnell
who that
are.
is, right?
I just referenced them the other day.
Oh, you
not
did?
talking about this.
Oh, okay.
So there we go. We're all of an age.
So yes, exactly. And so she said to my wife, "Can I do mime? Oh, can I borrow your husband for a little bit?" George,
As you do.
Yeah.
I need to borrow a mime.
Yeah, I need to borrow a mime. Yeah. So
It was a very strange phone call.
Yeah. So yeah, and he was working. Jordan was working on a project through Young Storytellers.
Young Storytellers.
Yeah,
That's another
great
we were
organization.
talking earlier about telling
Storytelling,
stories.
Yeah.
And how you're such an amazing storyteller.
Well, likewise.
And this is an amazing nonprofit that goes into schools and helps children that stories have not been told. And so he was working on that project, and they asked him to do a film. And of course, as a mom, I'm like, oh my gosh, how are you going to do that? You can't direct actors. You can't read social cues. You've got facial recognition problems. You don't recognize anyone.
Right.
How are you going to do this?
But he was watching Mime, right? On
He was watching
on
Mime.
YouTube
And
or
so
something like
hence
that.
you needed to borrow a mime.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
he said, I'm going to do it using Mime. And I said, what are you talking about? And he had been watching videos online.
Of Shields and Yarnell?
Of
a whole bunch of people.
different people. And so at that point, we didn't realize he didn't have the facial recognition. It was just early. We've been working together almost 3 years now. I can't believe it. And so it began that journey of being in the present, following your child's lead. What is so interesting to him about
Yes.
Mime? And he said, Mom, I'm going to do a short about a mime and a guy fighting over a girl. And so
He
that's
called
what,
She's Mine. He called it
It's
She's
called
Mine.
She's
Yeah,
Mime, and
She's
that's
Mine.
very
And
clever,
Very
isn't it?
clever.
You
And
can
so yeah, so
go
I
online and watch that, and Terry ended up being in it. But when he
What-
started that journey, I said, I can't, as a mom, I was like, I can't let him just jump out there. And I remembered that Terry was a mime. So that's
wonderful.
just from his idea where it started.
I just want to say, just pause for a second and just, say to everybody watching, because moments fly by in your life and your kid says, I'm interested in something, and you go, right? But I love it when a mom says, well, I'm going to go and find a professional mime because I think I know somebody. Or so they say, I know somebody who knows somebody, right? But how wonderful that you said yes. And
Oh, well.
this is how we need more of this in the world. Asking.
That's what we're
Because
all
that's
about.
when you find people who are we talk about the circle of the autism community, and it's when we find people that are just on the outskirts of that and pull them in that everything gets better, right?
It is so true.
You said yes.
So I said yes. I would help with this because it's a love of my life. But if anybody out there who does mime or knows about mime, it's not a it's not something you can make a lot of money at, first of all. So, you do it for the love of it, and I've been doing it for many years. I stopped telling people that I was a mime. Back in the old days, I went out for a casting and to a guy who was doing Happy Days, and he knew that I did mime. So I did a little mime, and I did some other little sketch, and I would call him from time to time, seeing if there was any roles for. He goes, there's no roles for mimes now.
Right.
I don't have any roles for mimes right now. So you get pigeonholed.
I was going to say that's exactly the term.
So
pigeonholed.
you get pigeonholed. Yeah.
now.
Well, it is now, but
Mime is back.
yeah, mime
with a vengeance.
with a
Is
vengeance.
back.
Yes.
No, especially in our
So
population.
yeah. So again, it's the love of my life, and I said I saw how this really affected Jordan, and then I said to myself, this is really unique. This is really different. And can I explain a little bit about what I
Yes,
think
please
mime
do.
is and how it impacts?
Yes.
Okay, so mime is a blend of storytelling and illusion and discovery. Okay, mimes are always paying attention to the world around them because they create that world around them, and then they're always reacting to the world around them.
Okay.
For instance. So mimes are always just telling stories. You know, they're usually surprised by the world that they find them in.
For applause.
Yeah, no.
That's lovely.
Got more.
Okay.
So mime is therapy. So then, you know, I saw how it was affecting Jordan. And what we teach in mime is therapy is we teach our students to pay attention to the world around them. And it's a world that they create. We have them pay attention to their bodies. We have them pay attention to their movement. We have them paying attention to their emotions and knowing that it all reads. So basically on my website it says we're helping them to connect, create, and communicate. And that's really what the goal of this has been. We do have a clip. I don't know when we're going to show this.
Why don't we show the clip now if you want to set it up for
Yeah,
us? What are we going to see?
This is the warm-up from the...
Well, we should go back. So one of the projects that we've done with the O'Kelley Lab is Jordan wrote a book when he was 10 to get out of homework.
This is one of your children.
And yes, and
love this. If we can, Traven, can you put it on my camera? There we go.
And it's on Amazon, and he's been selling it, which has been awesome. If you have children out there that have stories to tell, I encourage you to let them write it. He wrote that to get out of doing homework in 4th grade. And
How I got out of homework in 4th grade.
And he has
wonderful.
gone to different conferences and donated the book or raised funds with it for different organizations, and it's been wonderful for him. It's really helped him. So he went to the SING conference in the summer, and he met the founder, Dr. James T. Webb, and then shortly after that he passed away, and he wanted to do something in honor of this amazing man that had such vision to make a difference for twice exceptional children.
Yeah.
And so he decided to take his book, which is short stories, cut them down into monologues, and create a show.
And how old is he now?
He's just turned 14.
Okay, like well, this is pretty amazing.
But this is a autistic child.
I know.
That had a full-time aide. We had to fight for that.
We just were talking about that. Yeah.
All the way through elementary school. He really is challenged with visual, spatial. He can't recognize facial cues. Hence, he was so looking at the whole body with Mime to try to figure out the emotions. So you never know what it is that's stopping a child from succeeding. So he's edited down these short stories.
Amazing.
We had, I think, 15 kids perform them. And so we wanted to make it spectrum friendly.
Yeah.
And so we used a very small theater. We did a repertoire where we cast the parts so kids didn't have the anxiety of trying to compete. We did it all collaborative.
Excuse me.
And we brought Terry Hart in to warm them up. And he was in a consulting model. He came in, he worked with each child on their piece, basically pulling out the emotion of what the child's piece was about and helping them make that connection. So like he does, he really connects all the pieces for our population. It's so wonderful.
Love, love, love it. Okay, so in this clip, you were going to tell us, what are we going to see?
Oh, so in the clip, yeah, part of the warm-up process, thank you, I was getting them to use their body.
Okay.
And so basically, you'll see it'll be self-explanatory.
Okay, roll the clip, Traven.
All right, good. And then here, and scooch. Let's go back this way. Here.
You can't hear it, but I can hear it in my
Scooch. This one you don't have to move because you are moving. You're moving your whole body. So, okay. And then here. Great.
Amazing how specific the work is, right?
Well, thank you, and that's a great segue into something else that I think is important about Mime. It works on the physical as well, so it helps them with coordination, of course, and balance and eye contact, but it also helps them with executive function and sequencing. For instance, go back to that glass that we were just talking about. You know, what I would have my students, I did workshops at the Spectrum Lab, for instance, and we would break down just the movement of picking up that glass of water. So I'd have them center themselves, look around the room, and then see the glass and notice the glass. And mimes are always noticing and taking and thinking a thought about it. So, and then I'd have them bring their hand up and reach out, but don't touch the glass. Grab the glass, but don't lift it up. Lift it up, but don't drink it. Drink it, put it back, but don't let it go. Let it go, but don't take your hand away. Take your hand away, and then move on.
Right.
So we break down all these movements, and I'm going to, maybe your mind is thinking what I'm thinking about, another therapist, Sarah Ward.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sarah
So
Ward.
we break down these movements
Right.
so that they can. I mean, it's not that I want them to break down every movement in their life like that,
Right.
but I want them to be aware that all the different pieces that make up. You go into a restaurant and they are quite often surprised that the waiter comes and
Right.
wants to take their order. So it's the sequence of things. When you sit in the restaurant, know that you're going to put the napkin on your lap. Know that someone's going to hand you a menu and you're going to read it. So that kind of thing. But we do this in these exercises like that one particularly.
And it makes it very exciting for them because
It's a lot of fun.
It is fun.
Yeah, it's a lot
And
of fun to
that's, I
tell
think, the
stories.
key to everything.
Yeah, make it a good
Something
story.
you both share is humor. There's a lot of humor in what he does.
Right.
I mean, we would take challenges when we started workshopping it. We had the initial session with my son where he learned the language of mime because he needed to translate it with his script.
Right.
And we saw immediately. I had worked with Michelle Garcia Winner with social thinking, and so I immediately saw the benefits of mime if we put that in with Michelle Garcia Winner's work. And we actually this summer presented at their provider conference, and it was phenomenal. They were
up in South San Francisco.
wonderful,
Yeah.
and accepting, and it was just it was great. The other person that we just mentioned is Sarah Ward. Sarah Ward does a lot. She's a speech therapist that does a lot of work with executive function, and she uses something called Mime It, and it's basically like I'm talking now. I'm using gestures, and by using a gesture when you're explaining what's happening next, you're moving that thought of executive function or that thing that you're going to do when you get to school or remembering your lunch, all of these things that us moms want to kind of front load our kids when they're getting ready to leave the door, getting ready to leave the house to go to school. By miming it, by gesturing it, you're actually taking it out of the working memory part of the brain and moving it into the episodic part of the brain.
Isn't that interesting?
So she's doing all this work with mime, with
I
just
love that.
gesturing, and it was fascinating for us when we finally met her and heard her speak about it because we were doing that and
It was
we've
very
been doing
exciting,
that.
yeah.
And so it was awesome to see that she was using the gestures.
She's not
and
teaching
we were,
mime, but she's having them in their mind. And I don't know if she's
Just
teaching them
adding
to
gesture.
just adding gestures to it,
Right.
or today I'm going
movement.
to go to school and I'm going to open up my locker and I'm going to get out my book and I'm going to close my locker and I'm going to scramble the thing and I'm going to take my book and I'm going to grab my lunch and go. And so you
So
have
you're
them
sequencing,
see yourself do these things.
But
Right.
with you're actually miming it and adding that gesture. So there's so much going on with brain research now, and I mean we've
Mirror neurons.
worked with Nicole Tetrell and Dr. Nicole Tetrell, and she has helped us to understand like what is it, why does it work,
Right.
what we're doing, like it's just what is it about the brain that's making this all kind of happen for our kids. We've just seen so much, and when we presented at UNCA.
Oh, yeah.
You
The
were-
World Autism Festival in Vancouver a year ago, October. And
You opened the festival.
I opened the
and you
festival
had
with some
kids
mime.
from all over the world that didn't speak
They
English.
didn't speak English.
And he was using this
communicate.
nonverbal language, and it was just amazing. It was
Well, I
just
think
amazing.
there's so much for so many of us to learn because the walking through the steps of learning, okay, that I can mime to go through an action also creates an awareness so that when they see somebody else do it, it's the sub-language of what's happening, which is
Absolutely.
often missed when talking with somebody who's on the spectrum who hasn't been exposed to that.
Right.
Yeah.
There are all those cues, and what a fun way to bring awareness to that.
Right.
Right. I do these things called the tableaus where I'll have them stand in the neutral position, and I'm not standing now, and then I'll say, okay, you're neutral, all right, now everybody, the whole class, it's fun to watch too. And I did it as a performance exercise for the Spectrum's Christmas show the year before I met you.
Fun.
And anyway, so you're this, and then everybody, on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, do your pirate. And then go back to neutral, pirate, neutral, or superhero, neutral, superhero. So I had them do these different, so they felt what the superhero was, oh gosh, they're all over superhero,
Right.
or all over pirate, you know.
Oh, very fun.
But it is interesting because some of our kids, like you had mentioned, they haven't been exposed to some of these nonverbal, like they don't recognize a pirate.
Yeah.
So you have to, and he does it so well. He meets the child where they're at.
Fabulous.
And that's, I think, a big message for all of us parents is like, you know, if your pirate is just, you know, very subtle, you still see it. You see, very good. I love your pirate.
There you
because
go.
everyone's pirate is different.
Of course it is. Now you're working on a film now.
I'm working on the documentary of the process that we're going through, taking my son's book and making it into a stage reading. And he's editing we're trying to edit the book so that we can bring it out as a book of monologues for kids on the spectrum and 2E kids. So
I love it.
Yeah,
Absolutely love it.
It'll be fun.
So for people who are watching and they go, okay, this excites me, I want to know more, how would they get a hold of you guys?
Well, you can go to my website, which is, I made it myself, so. But it has all this information. Now, okay, but it has all the information. That's mimeastherapy.org.
Okay,
mimeastherapy.org. Or you can write me, Terry at mimeastherapy.com.
Okay.
And I want to know what's going on because what we're working on currently is I'm doing, for the lack of better words, a mime-along, where we're going to do 1-minute videos. 1 or 2 minute videos, and we'll do stuff like I'll teach him how to do the rope, and just stuff like this will hopefully be instructive, and it'll be something that you can download at home. And anyway, that's what we're working on. So if anybody has challenges or things they want me to address, please write me.
Or any ideas. We want to make warm-ups. We've been approached to do warm-ups for right before work, not just going right before school, like a right before school warm up for parents, or right before you go to work for older people on the spectrum, individuals that need to just warm up. We want to warm up your face. We want to have you be ready. We want to work through that sleep inertia that we all have in the morning.
It's funny that we have a topic always every day on Thursday, and our topic is setting yourself up for success.
There you go.
By doing an antecedent modification, something before you do something, which is a warm up.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yes.
We've gone full circle. Did
on the way here, I watched you say that, so now I know what you're talking about.
There we go.
ABC.
Right.
Yes.
And that is the perfect antecedent.
Yeah.
And a lot of our kids start with a detail, and they miss the big picture. And this has been very helpful for that. You know, we have a tunnel vision, and so if the
or
child
the opposite,
starts, or the opposite,
my kid sees the big picture and may miss the details.
There you go.
Yeah,
right?
the steps along the way, the
Yes,
sequencing. Yes,
exactly.
All of these steps are included in Mime therapy, and we love it.
it.
We're laughing our way through communicating.
And you have a schedule. We didn't get to your website. What's your website?
It would be theo'kelleylab.com.
Okay.
And please, it's under construction. We're just starting to launch it. So, but you can go to it and put your email, give us your email address, and email us.
You guys are awesome. I want to be on your mailing list so that I know when you're doing things like this. That would be awesome.
And we want to be on yours. We love what you're doing.
You can be on my mailing list always, right? So thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you, Shannon.
Wish we had like hours more but we got to have you back.
We'll come back.
Oh yeah, we'll come back. I have so much to say.
Know when you're doing another
for a mime.
Yes, you can.
I have so much to say for a mime.
But let us know when you're doing another performance. We'd love to come to that. We try to get out when we can. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Great, thank you.
All right, we're going to take a break. We are going to have one more guest that we're going to squeeze into this show, and I had her name here in just a second. She's coming to us to talk about Night to Remember. Paula Cracium is going to be with us. I'm sure I slaughtered her name. We'll find out from her. Stick with us.
Wow.
Neurodiversity in parents. One big happy family? We hope so. Anyway, what is neurodiversity? Everybody's talking a lot about it these days. Neurodiversity means that there's a view that people with autism just have a different way of being, and they should be honored for that. And then parents oftentimes look at autism as a disability or a disorder, and that can create some conflict. We sometimes throw up our hands, neurodiversity or neurodiversity. There can actually be some issues around this that we need to think about together. First of all, neurodiversity could be positive because it can create more of kind of a sense of acceptance in society. Yes, these people have autism, they're just different. It could possibly help create a sense of self-esteem that's improved in people with autism. They just realize, okay, I'm not damaged, I'm not bad, whatever, I'm just different. So that could be useful. On the downside, it could be an excuse to not give services to people with autism, to not have much empathy for their parents, and to not look at ways that they can be helped. And in many people that have autism, they do very well. Other people do not do well at all. They can't access services, they cannot enjoy their life, they're in pain. So it is important that we understand it's not just one issue. So how do we solve this when we look at neurodiversity? I think we have to look at it this way. It's kind of like when you have that big family dinner at Thanksgiving and everybody's around the table, you got your uncle, your aunt, your kids, your parents, everyone has an opinion. It doesn't necessarily mesh. And I think the way that we need to think about this is we need to respect each other's opinion, because actually we need each other. We need to be allies on this. The outside world is a big place for people with autism spectrum disorders and their families. We have to remember, we're one big, happy, dysfunctional family, and we need to behave that way. We should respect each other, listen to each other, and we will all have a great time when it comes time to get together and celebrate the lives of people with autism.
Hi, I'm Lisa Ackerman. Welcome back to Talk of Facts. We hear questions all the time, and we want to give you the answers that help make your journey in autism easier and more navigatable. Less than a year ago, we interviewed the top 100 doctors in the United States working with children on the spectrum, and we asked them a question in the cloak of secrecy. What are the top 3 mistakes parents living with autism do? Number 1, and the one that makes me laugh the most, is when they use their physician as a marriage and family therapist. 1, the doctors told me it made them uncomfortable, and 2, they were highly unqualified to provide that type of advice. So the night before your physician appointment with your MAPS doctor, get together with your spouse, significant other, and write out the list of the targets and the agenda that you want to cover at the physician's appointment. Get in sync. Then you'll be definitely spending less time and not making that doctor so uncomfortable. Second thing that was the most common mistakes parents living with autism make is they want to go too fast. And really, you want to pace yourself in the autism journey. We all know that we want to get our kid to be the best they can be and hopefully recover from autism. And what a lot of the doctors have told me is that you want to really pace yourself. 1, to let the labs be your guide, and 2, work with your physician on the prioritization and the delivery of the different medical interventions. The third most common mistake they felt families made was giving up too soon. And what you need to know is they're invested, they're looking at wanting to get the best from your child. But I tell you that when I got that and consolidated the 100 interviews with these physicians, most of the doctors who brought that up had tears in their eyes. They want you to know that they're in the fight with you, and they want you to know that hope is really real. It may take hard work and it may take time, but to not give up and to stay in the game. So let Talk of help you. We'll have some more Talk of facts for you in the future, real questions and real answers for the autism journey.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi there, I'm Lisa Ackerman. Welcome to the show. So the goal of today, we're going to make meatballs. Let's get started. So again, I'm going to take roughly a pound of my ground organic turkey, and I'm going to add in the secret vegetable. So if your kid doesn't like vegetables, don't cook in front of them, okay? Have them watch a movie or something. but you definitely want to make sure they're not watching, because then they won't eat it. So, and here we go with the egg. And our breadcrumbs. I'm just adding salt and pepper to taste. If you think about kids' shapes and sizes, you want to think small shapes, small hands. So your oven should be preheating at about 400 degrees. We're going to kick into the oven here and look at our meatballs. I did flip them halfway through the 20-odd minute. So we'll put, just like Julia Child's, there's our finished product right there. These are good. Cooking is easy. You don't have to be afraid of it. But we want to hear from you. If you can let us know what recipes are important to you, maybe convert a recipe from a traditional flour or gluten-based to a gluten-free or an allergy-free, we're here to help. So you get to us. You can email us at autismlive@gmail.com. You can reach out on Facebook at facebook.com/autismlive, or reach out at Taka Now. So I know you're having a great day. I had a lot of fun cooking with you in the kitchen, but I'll tell you, before we end, I gotta have more meatballs. Have a great day.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to,
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism,
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
it's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love. The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these three words. There is hope.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We've had such a power-packed show that we're not done and we're going to go late because we don't want to shortchange our next guest. Paula Cracium is joining us, and she's going to talk with us about a really amazing event that's coming up very soon. It's called A Night to Remember. Paula, thank you so much for being willing to be with us on such short notice. So talk to us about this amazing event, A Night to Remember.
Well, we are just it's an event that we're pretty excited about. It's free to the community. Any student that has special needs, ages 13 to 25 is our range, but we're incredibly flexible with that.
I want to meet that lovely human being who's sitting next to you.
I'm so sorry.
No.
This is my granddaughter, Isabella.
Hi,
She's
Isabella.
here with me today.
No, she wants to be on. I don't blame her. She's fabulous.
She does. She's been here helping today, and we are we have about 40 volunteers here getting ready for an event we're having this weekend. So
you're busy.
We are busy. But, so the Night to Remember, this gala is free to kids. It'll start with them checking in, and they will get hair and makeup done if they'd like that. They'll get an outfit, either a sarong or a Hawaiian shirt, whichever one they want. Then they'll get a limo ride around the campus, and then there's a reception that will have ukulele players and Hawaii twine and luau dance lessons, and we have some coconut bowling games and some glitter tattoos. We're passing Spam Masubi, which who doesn't like Spam Masubi, and some Dole Whip for the kids, and then they'll go in for the actual luau inside, which will have a full banquet, fire dancers, hula dancers, and then we have this amazing swag bag that they'll get when they head out, and that will be the end of the event. But we're just really excited that they will
Hi, Sweet Pea.
for them to come by. I'm sorry
No, it's wonderful. Children and dogs are always welcome on Autism Live, and they will always step in front of the camera. And we love that. You're beautiful. Hi. Can you wave to me?
Can you wave to her and say hi?
Do you see that I'm waving to you? Well, the camera's not on me. Put it on me for a second, Traven. See, do you see I'm waving? I'm waving to you. Hi. Can you wave to me? Nope.
No,
she says, I don't want to. That's okay. Yeah, that's all right.
Listen, I'm so thankful for you guys going along. We just wanted to get the word out. We have about 50 spaces left, and we just would love to fill those with kids that we can love on. We have, for this event, we're expecting about 150 students. We have over 400 volunteers of people who have come and just want to serve and love and support these kids.
So this is happening on March 8th at 7 p.m., but where? So where do people need to live to be able to come to this? Because everybody's like, I'll come.
We're in the Los Angeles area. We're in the San Fernando Valley.
Okay.
So anywhere in the Los Angeles area would work. I'm so sorry.
No, she's fine. Don't even worry about her.
Kids and dogs thing happening.
It's totally, I love it.
Northern end of the San Fernando Valley, just off the 118 freeway at Tampa.
Okay. And so where would they go to register, Paula, to be able to do this?
They go online at shephardchurch.com/NTR, standing for Night to Remember.
Okay, Night to Remember.
shephardchurch.com/NTR.
Okay, so this is a big, big event, and once you register, so many wonderful things happen. We want to reiterate that it's totally free. And people will get nervous when you say that, Paula. They're like, wait a second, who's doing this and why do you do this? Why is this important to you?
You know, obviously as a church, one of our great passions is just to love people.
She's hilarious.
They are. And this just gives us a chance to love on a specific community of people. And we did it 2 years ago, and the response of volunteers and everything was amazing of them just coming back. So we're just incredibly blessed to be able to do it.
So for everybody, and I know that sometimes you have people travel long distances to get to this because it's such an amazing event. But for people who are in the Los Angeles area or can get to the Los Angeles area on March 8th, you really need to reserve a spot so that they know how many individuals are coming, because there's free stuff that they're going to be giving you guys, and they got to have the right number of volunteers. So you have to register.
Yes, and the decor and all the special things that we have planned, we definitely want to make sure that we have everything ready for them. We've anticipated and done a lot of shopping and getting things ready.
Okay, so if people want to participate in the hair and makeup, that's a 5 o'clock arrival thing. If you want to
we will call them, once they register, we will call them with an appointment time.
Okay.
So when they come in and get hair and makeup done, everyone will go in and get an outfit. And then we bought these just hair pieces, little flowers and things to go in their hair if they want to. So that will start at about 5:15, 5:30, and the limos will start taking off at about 10 to 6, and then the reception starts at 6 o'clock. So all of the activities will be well up and running by 6.
So they get to take a limousine ride around the campus, which they will love. And plus, which you greet them with tons of volunteers cheering and making them feel like they are the special people that they are and deserving of all that attention and love.
They will have a host, yes, totally. They will have a host the entire night to make sure that they don't miss out on anything. That they have a chance to do the hula lessons, that they have a chance to get a picture with Moana, that they have a chance to do everything and don't miss out on anything. So they'll have a host the entire evening.
And the age guideline on this is 13 to 25, but they're willing to be flexible. So if you're like, my child's 12, how did I miss out? Talk to them about it. We just had the website up there. Can we put it up there again, Traven? There it is. So www.shephardchurch.com/NTR. NTR stands for Night to Remember, and that's really what they're creating for your kids. For those of you who are in Los Angeles who say, I can't afford to go to anything, I can't make special memories for my kids, we don't get to have social interactions, we don't have friends, I'm telling you, this is the event to go to.
Also, I want to let you know that the families are able to stay in watch the show, and we have meals for them as well. It's a different meal, but we have a gallery section where they're able to sit and watch the show and just watch their kids interact, but they'll be separate from their kids so that the night is just really focused on the students. But we have food and things for them as well.
And I have to say that we share a mutual friend that you probably don't realize, but Rachel Bird has said really amazing things about this event to me before.
Very cool. Thank
Yes.
you.
So, and has said to me, Shannon, you got to get to this, and it time-wise has never worked out. But I hear that this is a really special event, that you take such good care of our families and our individuals. So you think you have about 50 more spots?
We do. We have about 100 registrants, and we want to cap out at about 150 this year.
Okay.
So we've got 50 spots left as of this morning.
But it's first come, first serve, you guys. So we're putting it out there on the show, and those 50 spots are going to go very quickly. So if you really want to go, you got to get on this right now. You want to go to that website, www.shepherdchurch.com/NTR, and get registered and participate in this wonderful event. And I just want to say thank you so much for being willing to be with us on a short notice.
Oh my gosh.
And then, what is it's your granddaughter, you said?
My granddaughter, Isabella, she came to work with me today. This is technically my day off, but there's so much going on. So this is the day that I watch my granddaughter. So
well, Isabella made this interview. If it doesn't go viral, then I don't know what. Isabella, you were hilarious and so much fun. The facial expressions when you see this back, Grandma, you're going to just need to cry and laugh at the same time. But we thank you so much. Have a wonderful event, and thank you for what you do for our families.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye, Isabella. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Anyway, so that was pretty hilarious, yes? I tell you what, we, about a year ago, we did an interview. Nancy Allspot Jackson was here, and just like yesterday, sometimes we have too many people in the studio during Let's Talk Autism, so I step out. And we had an assistance dog that was being trained. We had the dog trainer. We had mom. We had dad, and we had the child. We're still on, so you can still be heard, Paula. But we had all of them on in the studio, and I was sitting in the control room, and the dog was doing things, and then the child decided to get up and go running up to the different cameras, and the interview continued, and people loved it. They thought it was hilarious. I thought it was hilarious. Kids will be kids, right? We got to let them be kids. So
much for your patience.
Thank you. She was precious. Bye-bye. So I'm going to hang up with her, you guys. But okay, we're past time. We've gone a full 8 minutes over, but you know, sometimes you just got to do that, right? I just wanted to say thank you to you guys. I'm going to be in the Bay Area on Monday and Tuesday. I'm going to be visiting a lot of the Center for Autism and Related Disorders offices and talking to families. If you're one of those families, please, you should have gotten a flyer from me and Cecilia Knight telling you which offices we're going to be at which time and which presentations we're doing. But on Tuesday morning, we are going to be at Ohlone College recruiting therapists. So if you live in the Bay Area and you know somebody who needs a job, come on down. I'm looking for therapists, y'all, and I'm going to find some. I'm going to find some really good therapists in that area up at Ohlone College on Tuesday. Then we're going to be back here on Wednesday, and we're really excited. We've got amazing shows for you guys. You have no idea. So stay tuned until then. Give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.